The air was thick with smoke, and the metallic scent of blood clung to Nathan's nostrils. His fingers trembled as he clutched the broken pipe he'd ripped from a wall moments earlier. Rex stood by his side, hackles raised, a low growl rolling from his throat like distant thunder. The figures in front of them, 3 ragged-looking men with rusted machetes and cold, dead stares, closed in. The largest one smirked. "Drop the pipe, buddy," the man sneered, pointing his blade at Nathan's chest. "We only want the dog." Nathan wiped the sweat from his brow, chest heaving. "He's not just a dog," he said through gritted teeth. The smirking man chuckled. "Oh, we know," he said. "That thing's no ordinary mutt." Nathan's grip on the pipe tightened. He had no idea what they were talking about, but he knew one thing: no one was taking Rex. He glanced down at his loyal companion. Rex's eyes locked onto the men, glowing faintly red in the dim light. "See?" one of the men muttered, stepping back. "I told you! He's one of them." Before Nathan could react, one of the scavengers lunged. Rex shot forward like a bolt of lightning, teeth flashing. The attacker's scream pierced the air, but it was quickly silenced by a sickening crunch. The man crumpled to the ground, unmoving. The other 2 staggered back, eyes wide with horror. "What the hell is that thing?" one of them stammered. Nathan stared at Rex, his heart pounding in his chest. His loyal friend stood over the body, fur bristling, teeth bared, and those glowing red eyes burning like embers in the dark. Hours earlier, Nathan had believed Rex was just a normal dog, a stubborn but loyal companion. He'd been wrong. The day had started like most others. Nathan and Rex had spent the morning scavenging through the skeletal remains of a once thriving city. Crumbled skyscrapers loomed in the distance, their glass windows shattered like jagged teeth. Nature had begun to reclaim the streets, vines snaking up the sides of buildings and grass sprouting through cracks in the pavement. Nathan had learned to keep moving. The iron vultures, violent scavengers known for their brutal tactics, had been sweeping through the area lately. The last thing he wanted was to cross paths with them. But staying quiet wasn't exactly Rex's strong suit. "You know," Nathan muttered as Rex barked furiously at a broken vending machine. "One day your loud mouth's gonna get us killed." Rex ignored him, paws scratching at the machine's rusted frame. Nathan sighed and knelt beside him, prying open the front panel. His fingers brushed against something small and plastic, a half-melted candy bar wrapper. Rex wagged his tail eagerly. Yeah? Real jackpot," Nathan said dryly, tossing the wrapper aside. "You'd think you found gold." Rex barked again, this time sharper, more urgent. Nathan's gut twisted. "Someone's coming," he whispered. The figures appeared seconds later, 5 of them, moving between the ruined cars like shadows. Nathan's pulse jumped. The iron vultures. He grabbed Rex's collar and bolted down an alley, weaving through debris. "Over there!" one of the scavengers shouted. Nathan stumbled through the ruins, Rex keeping pace beside him. They ducked into a shattered department store, hiding behind an overturned clothing rack. Nathan's breath was ragged, his heart pounding in his ears. "Quiet, buddy," he whispered. Rex stared at him, panting, tongue lolling out like this was some kind of game. The vultures' footsteps echoed nearby. One of them muttered, "I swear I saw that beast, glowing red eyes, sharp teeth. Told you that dog ain't normal." Nathan clenched his fists. Whatever nonsense they believed about Rex was going to get both of them killed. Moments later, the footsteps faded. Nathan exhaled shakily. "All right," he whispered, ruffling Rex's fur. "Looks like we're in the clear." Rex's ears shot up. Before Nathan could react, Rex spun toward the entrance, teeth bared. A shadow loomed behind them, one of the vultures, grinning like a wolf with a fresh kill. "You're gonna wish you kept running," the man said. That's when things spiraled out of control. The 3 remaining vultures cornered Nathan in the street. One lunged, and Rex lashed out with terrifying precision. The man never stood a chance. The other 2 scattered. Nathan barely had time to think before Rex's growl deepened, a guttural, primal sound that made Nathan's blood run cold. Rex! Nathan murmured, unsure if he was speaking to his friend or something else entirely. Moments later, they were on the run again. Nathan pushed deeper into the ruins, twisting through alleyways until his legs burned. When they finally stopped to catch their breath, Rex lay at his feet, calm and relaxed as if nothing had happened. Nathan knelt down, gripping Rex's face. "What the hell was that back there?" he asked, half expecting Rex to answer. Rex just wagged his tail. By nightfall, Nathan was exhausted. He and Rex had found shelter in an abandoned diner. The faded checkered floors were cracked, and dust blanketed every surface. Nathan pulled his jacket tighter around himself and huddled in a corner. Rex lay curled beside him, his glowing eyes slowly dimming to their usual warm brown. Nathan couldn't shake what he'd seen. Rex had always been protective, but that attack, it wasn't normal. Rex had moved faster than any dog should. He'd seemed to know where the attackers would strike before they even moved. And those eyes? "You're just a dog," Nathan muttered, more to convince himself than anyone else. Rex's head lifted. He stared at Nathan for a long, unsettling moment. Then he lay his head back down and closed his eyes. Nathan barely slept that night. Every sound made him flinch, and Rex's occasional growl kept him on edge. By morning they were moving again, but the tension refused to lift. They reached the outskirts of a walled settlement by midday. Haven's Crest. A place rumored to be safe, if you followed the rules. Nathan had heard enough stories to know they wouldn't just let strangers walk in, but he was desperate. Rex needed rest, and Nathan needed answers. As they approached the gate, a dozen armed guards met them. Their leader, a burly man with a scar across his face, pointed directly at Rex. "That thing's not coming in here," he growled. Nathan squared his shoulders. "He's my dog," the guard sneered. "That ain't no dog. That's a beast." The gates of Haven's Crest remained firmly shut. Nathan glanced at Rex, who stood calmly by his side. The glow had returned to Rex's eyes. Nathan's heart pounded as the guards drew their weapons. "You don't want to do this," Nathan warned. The guard smirked. "I think we do." Nathan glanced down at Rex again. The glow in his eyes flared brighter. "Yeah," Nathan muttered. "I was afraid of that." Nathan sat by the fire, his back pressed against a cold concrete wall. The flickering flames danced in Rex's glowing eyes, and for a moment, Nathan wondered if he was losing his mind. He kept telling himself Rex was just a dog, just his loyal, protective companion. But the blood on Rex's muzzle, the bone-deep growls that didn't sound like they belonged to any normal animal, and those faintly glowing eyes whispered otherwise. The iron vultures had seen it too. They feared Rex like he was some kind of monster. Nathan didn't believe in legends, but now he wasn't sure what to believe anymore. The wind howled outside their makeshift shelter, and Nathan shivered despite the fire's warmth. Rex lay curled beside him, eyes half-lidded but still watching the entrance like a soldier standing guard. Nathan absently stroked Rex's fur, trying to convince himself that everything would be fine. Yet no matter how hard he tried, the image of Rex attacking that scavenger lingered in his mind. It hadn't been like a dog defending its master. It had been calculated. Precise. Rex had moved like he knew exactly where to strike, as if he'd been trained for it. "You're just a dog," Nathan muttered again. The words felt hollow. Rex's head lifted slightly, as if he understood. Nathan swallowed hard. He wasn't sure what scared him more, that Rex might be something else, or that whatever Rex was, it didn't seem to matter. Rex was still his only friend in this miserable world. Morning arrived with a dull gray sky and a thick fog that clung to the streets like a shroud. Nathan packed his gear and led Rex away from their shelter. The rumors about Haven's Crest still gnawed at him. The guards at the gate had been terrified of Rex, and the way they called him a beast echoed what the iron vultures had said. Nathan needed answers. Maybe someone in Haven's Crest knew what Rex really was. The path toward Haven's Crest twisted through old ruins and broken streets. Every few steps, Rex would stop, ears twitching, sniffing the air. Nathan followed his lead, trusting Rex's instincts more than his own. Twice, they narrowly avoided iron vultures lurking in the shadows. Each time, Rex stopped before Nathan could even spot them. It was like Rex knew exactly where they were. By the time they reached Haven's Crest's outer wall, Nathan's nerves were frayed. The towering gates were made of rusted metal and old scrap, a patchwork defense that somehow still looked formidable. Guards stood watch on top of the wall, their rifles pointed outward. As Nathan approached, one of them called down. "You again?" the guard barked. "Didn't we tell you to leave?" "I just need to talk to someone," Nathan shouted back. "Please." The guard shook his head. "Not with that thing with you. He's just a dog." "He's not," the guard snapped. "And if you're smart, you'll leave that thing in the dirt and save yourself." Nathan clenched his fists. He was tired, hungry, and sick of feeling powerless. Before he could speak, a voice behind him made him freeze. "Should have listened when you had the chance." Nathan spun around. 3 iron vultures stood in the mist, blades drawn. The largest one, the same man Rex had nearly mauled days before, smirked through blood-stained teeth. "You've been poking around too much," the man growled. "Time to end this." Rex snarled, stepping forward, but Nathan grabbed his collar. If Rex attacked now, it would only prove what everyone feared. "Easy," Nathan whispered. The vultures advanced. One of them lunged, but before Nathan could react, Rex broke free. He moved like a shadow, weaving between the attackers with terrifying speed. His teeth sank into one man's arm, dragging him to the ground. Another swung a machete, but Rex ducked and leapt for his throat. Blood sprayed across the cracked pavement. Nathan's heart pounded as Rex turned to face the last man. The vulture stumbled back, clutching his knife like it was suddenly useless. Rex's eyes glowed brighter, his growl rumbling low and deep. The vulture bolted, disappearing into the fog. Rex stood over the bodies, chest heaving, blood dripping from his jaws. His eyes flickered red again, brighter this time. Nathan felt like he was staring at something that barely belonged in this world. "What the hell are you?" Nathan whispered. They didn't make it inside Haven's Crest that night. Instead, Nathan dragged Rex back into the wilderness, putting as much distance between them and the settlement as possible. He needed answers, and he wasn't getting them behind those rusted gates. By morning, Nathan stumbled upon an old university complex, its walls overgrown with vines and moss. Inside, the air was stale, and scattered papers covered the floor. The place had clearly been abandoned for years, but something about it felt wrong. Rex sniffed the air, hackles raised. The deeper they went, the more unsettling it became. Broken lab equipment was strewn across the rooms, glass vials, rusted syringes, and cracked monitors. One room had blood smeared on the walls, dark and faded. Rex refused to enter that one. In a locked office near the back, Nathan found a stack of crumbling files. He flipped through them, his stomach twisting. Project Fenra. The name appeared over and over. The documents spoke of experiments designed to create the ultimate predator, an engineered beast capable of tracking and killing with surgical precision. Enhanced senses, superior strength, and a dangerous intelligence. The project had been deemed a failure. Too unpredictable. Too unstable. The subjects had been hunted down and destroyed. All except one. Nathan's fingers trembled as he read the final entry. Subject 9, escaped containment. Last seen near Bloodstone Valley. Nathan felt his stomach drop. Bloodstone Valley was only miles from where he'd found Rex. He stared at his dog, his friend, the creature that had saved him more times than he could count. Rex wagged his tail, but there was something unsettling in his gaze. Something sharp and calculating. Something that made Nathan wonder if Rex was still the friend he'd always trusted, or something far more dangerous. Nathan packed the documents in his bag. He couldn't abandon Rex, not now. But he knew one thing for sure. If Rex really was part of Project Fenra, he wasn't just being hunted by the iron vultures. Something far worse was out there, something that had driven the vultures to fear Rex more than their own lives. That night, Nathan barely slept. He kept his hand near his knife, watching Rex's glowing eyes flicker in the dark. Part of him still believed Rex was just his friend. The other part feared that if Rex's instincts ever fully took over, he wouldn't survive the night. Dawn came quietly. Nathan woke to find Rex sitting by the door, ears twitching. Something was wrong. "What is it?" Nathan whispered. Rex didn't move. He just stared at the horizon, growling softly. Nathan followed his gaze and felt his blood run cold. Silhouetted against the morning light stood a lone figure. Tall, thin, and unmoving. The air seemed to shift around it, as if the space it occupied refused to sit still. The apex beast had found them. Nathan felt the weight of the air pressing down on him as he stared at the figure in the distance. It stood motionless, a dark silhouette against the rising sun. The way it stood wasn't natural. It was too still, too poised, as if it were savoring the moment before pouncing. Rex's growl deepened, his fur bristling along his spine. Nathan swallowed hard, gripping his knife tightly, though he knew it wouldn't be much help against whatever that thing was. The figure moved. It didn't walk, it glided, smooth and silent, weaving between the trees like smoke. Nathan backed away slowly, hand tightening on Rex's collar, but Rex wasn't budging. His body was tense, muscles coiled like springs. Then, as if some invisible signal passed between them, Rex broke free and shot forward. "Rex!" Nathan shouted, but his voice barely seemed to register. Rex sprinted toward the figure, teeth bared, a furious snarl ripping from his throat. The dark figure didn't flinch. Instead, it shifted, warping like a mirage. Nathan blinked, and the figure was suddenly 10 feet closer, standing perfectly still once more. Rex circled it, snarling, but the shadow didn't react. Nathan's pulse hammered in his ears. He knew something was wrong. Before Nathan could shout again, the figure lashed out. A clawed arm shot forward, faster than Nathan's eyes could follow. Rex dodged at the last second, leaping back with a sharp yelp. The figure's hand twisted unnaturally, bending in impossible directions as it swiped again. This time, Rex struck back, clamping his jaws down on its arm. For a moment, Nathan thought Rex had the upper hand, until the figure twisted its head sharply toward him. Its face, if it could even be called that, was a nightmare. Pale, stretched skin clung tightly to an angular skull, and its empty black eyes seemed to stare through Nathan's soul. The creature grinned, revealing rows of jagged, uneven teeth that didn't belong in any living thing. Nathan knew then this wasn't just some mutated beast. It was something worse, something unnatural. The creature hissed, twisting its arm unnaturally and flinging Rex aside like a rag doll. Rex tumbled across the dirt but scrambled back to his feet, growling louder than ever. Nathan knew they couldn't win this fight. Grabbing his pack, he bolted toward Rex and yanked him away, forcing the dog to retreat with him into the trees. Branches whipped against Nathan's face as he stumbled through the undergrowth. He didn't dare look back. He knew that thing was following them, knew it was closing the gap with every step. Rex kept pace beside him, his glowing eyes flickering brighter. They reached an old highway, crumbled asphalt cracked with weeds. Nathan skidded to a stop, gasping for breath. Rex spun around to face the trees, muscles tensed, his teeth bared. Then the shadow emerged. The figure stepped onto the road, moving more deliberately now, like a predator cornering its prey. Nathan could feel something heavy in the air, a cold dread that seemed to seep into his bones. The apex beast had found them, and it wasn't going to stop. Nathan's mind raced. He couldn't fight this thing. Even with Rex, they'd barely escaped last time. His eyes darted to a rusted truck sitting crooked on the side of the road. It was half crushed by debris, but the door was still open. "Come on!" Nathan shouted, grabbing Rex's collar and dragging him toward the truck. They barely made it inside before the creature lunged. Nathan slammed the door just in time, and the beast's twisted hand scraped violently against the metal. Rex barked furiously, flinging himself at the window as the creature's face pressed against the glass. Its eyes bored into Nathan's, and for a terrifying moment, Nathan felt a cold chill creep into his mind, A suffocating weight that felt like his thoughts were no longer his own. Then Rex's furious bark snapped him out of it. The creature hissed and stepped back, its twisted smile stretching wider. Nathan knew it was playing with them. The apex beast didn't need to rush. It knew they were trapped. Nathan's eyes darted around the truck's cab. The keys dangled from the ignition, but the battery was surely dead after years of decay. Desperation pushed him to try anyway. He twisted the key, nothing. No spark, no hum, just silence. "Come on," he muttered, twisting the key again. Still nothing. The beast dragged its claws along the truck's side, scraping deep grooves into the rusted metal. Rex barked again, his body shaking with rage. Nathan could feel the heat radiating off him, like Rex's anger had turned to fire. The apex beast circled the truck, its unnatural smile never fading. Nathan's pulse hammered in his ears. If this was the end, he wasn't going down without a fight. He yanked his pack open and dug inside, searching for anything useful, a flare, a blade, something. His fingers brushed against a lighter and a half-used bottle of fuel from one of their scavenging runs. An idea struck him. Grabbing a rag from the floor, he doused it in fuel and stuffed it into the bottle's opening. His hands shook as he flicked the lighter. The small flame danced in his fingers. "Back away!" Nathan muttered through clenched teeth. The apex beast pressed its face closer to the window, teeth glinting in the dim light. "Back away!" Nathan roared. He flung the Molotov cocktail through the window. The bottle shattered against the ground, igniting in a burst of flames. The apex beast shrieked, a high-pitched, piercing sound that made Nathan's ears ring. The flames licked up the creature's warped limbs, and for the first time, Nathan saw something like fear in those black, empty eyes. But the fire wasn't enough. The beast retreated into the trees, its body still flickering with flames, but Nathan knew it wasn't dead. Not yet. Rex whimpered beside him, licking a cut on his paw. Nathan ran his hand through Rex's fur, feeling the heat beneath it. "We're not safe," Nathan muttered. "Not yet." They fled the highway, moving deeper into the forest. Nathan knew they couldn't keep running. The apex beast wouldn't stop. It was hunting Rex, and now it knew where they were. Somehow, Rex had managed to hold his own against that thing. Nathan didn't know why or how, but he suspected Rex's connection to Project Fenra was the key. Hours later, they stumbled upon an abandoned ranger station perched near the edge of a cliff. Nathan barricaded the doors and windows as best he could. Rex collapsed near the fireplace, his eyes still faintly glowing. Nathan sat beside him, exhausted. His mind raced, trying to make sense of everything. Rex wasn't normal, that much was clear. Whatever the scientists behind Project Fenra had done, they turned Rex into something else, something powerful, something dangerous. But Rex had still chosen to protect him. Nathan glanced at his dog, who lay stretched out beside him. Despite everything, the glowing eyes, the unsettling strength, the terrifying speed, Rex was still the same stubborn mutt who barked at vending machines and wagged his tail whenever Nathan found an old candy wrapper. Whatever instincts had been bred into him, Rex hadn't turned into a monster. Outside, the wind howled through the trees. Nathan knew it was only a matter of time before the apex beast returned. But whatever was coming next, he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't going to let anything take Rex away from him. Nightfall crept over the forest like a slow-moving shadow. The wind had died down, leaving an eerie stillness that gnawed at Nathan's nerves. He sat by the window of the ranger station, gripping a rusted crowbar in one hand and keeping his eyes fixed on the tree-line. Rex lay beside him, his chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. His fur was still slick with sweat and dirt, and the faint glow in his eyes flickered weakly. Nathan knew Rex was exhausted, but there was no time to rest. The apex beast would come, and when it did, there would be no second chances. The air outside felt wrong. Nathan had learned to trust his instincts after months of surviving out here, and right now those instincts were screaming. The world had fallen too quiet. No rustling leaves, no distant calls of birds or insects, just silence. He ran his fingers through Rex's fur, feeling the heat radiating from his body. It was like the fight with the apex beast had triggered something inside him, something primal. Rex wasn't just tired. He was changing. Nathan's thoughts spiraled as he stared out the window. The files from Project Fenra had said the prototypes were unstable, their minds slowly slipping into uncontrollable aggression. But Rex wasn't like that. He had saved Nathan's life over and over again. Rex wasn't a mindless killer, no matter what those iron vultures or the guards at Haven's Crest believed. He was still Rex, stubborn, loyal, and fiercely protective. A branch snapped in the distance. Nathan's pulse jumped. His grip tightened on the crowbar as he squinted into the dark. At first, he couldn't see anything, just the outlines of trees swaying faintly in the breeze. But then he spotted it. A shape. Tall and thin, its limbs slightly too long, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. The apex beast. It moved slowly, weaving between the trees like a phantom. Nathan's breath caught as he saw its face flicker in the moonlight. That same stretched grin, the empty black eyes that seemed to swallow the light. It wasn't in any rush. It knew Nathan and Rex were cornered. The station's barricades wouldn't hold. This place wasn't a fortress, it was a cage. Nathan knelt beside Rex and whispered, "We need to go." Rex lifted his head, but his legs trembled when he tried to stand. He let out a weak growl before his body sagged back to the floor. Nathan cursed under his breath. Rex wasn't ready to fight, and there was no way they'd outrun the creature in this state. The apex beast had taken its time for a reason. It knew Nathan had nowhere left to run. Nathan glanced around the room, searching for options. His gaze landed on an old metal canister tucked against the wall. A propane tank, likely empty, but maybe not. He grabbed it and checked the weight. Still heavy. Hope flickered inside him. He dragged the tank closer to the door and cracked the valve just enough to release a faint hiss. The sharp scent of gas filled the air. He backed away, gripping the crowbar tightly in one hand and his lighter in the other. Rex's ears twitched as if he understood what Nathan was planning. The apex beast stepped closer. Its distorted grin seemed to stretch wider as it reached the station's porch. Nathan heard the wood creak beneath its twisted limbs. The air felt colder, like the very presence of the thing drained the warmth from the room. Nathan knelt beside Rex and whispered, "Stay down." The door burst open with a deafening crack. Splinters flew through the air as the apex beast forced its way inside. Its long, twisted frame barely seemed to fit through the doorway. Nathan struck the lighter and flung it at the floor near the propane tank. For a moment, nothing happened, then fire roared to life, spreading rapidly across the wooden floor. The apex beast shrieked, its skin curling and blackening as flames crawled up its limbs. Nathan grabbed Rex and stumbled toward the back exit, coughing as smoke filled the air. The creature's unnatural screams pierced his ears, but he didn't stop. He staggered outside, dragging Rex with him as flames swallowed the station. The blaze lit up the night, but Nathan didn't let himself relax. The apex beast had taken fire before and survived. He didn't know how long the flames would hold it back. The only option left was to get to Haven's Crest. They needed people, weapons, anything that could help finish this fight. Nathan hoisted Rex onto his back and pushed deeper into the forest. Branches tore at his face, and his legs screamed with every step. Rex's breathing was shallow, and the heat radiating from his body seemed stronger now. Nathan feared the energy burning inside Rex wasn't just exhaustion, it was something else, something tied to whatever the scientists had done to him. Hours passed before the walls of Haven's Crest came into view. The guards were still stationed at the gate, but they looked panicked. They had seen the fire. Nathan stumbled closer, barely able to keep his footing. "Open the gate!" he shouted, his voice hoarse. The guards hesitated until one of them recognized Nathan. They hauled the gate open just enough for him to slip inside. Nathan collapsed to his knees, Rex tumbling from his back. Marshal Grimm appeared moments later, his face twisted in anger. "I told you not to come back here," he growled. "And now you've brought that thing with you." Nathan pushed himself upright. "You don't understand," he gasped. It's not Rex you need to be afraid of. The real monster is still out there. Grim's face darkened. I know, he muttered grimly. It's already here. Nathan's stomach nodded. Before he could speak, a scream tore through the settlement. Guards were scrambling toward the north side of town. Nathan knew what they had found. The apex beast hadn't died in the fire. It had followed them. Grim barked orders, gathering his men to form a defensive line. Nathan grabbed a discarded rifle from a nearby crate and knelt beside Rex. You've got one more in you, Nathan whispered. I know you do. Rex forced himself to his feet, his glowing eyes burning like embers. His lips peeled back in a snarl, and for the first time since finding Rex, Nathan felt something terrifying. Rex wasn't just defending him anymore. He was hunting. The apex beast burst through the northern barricade in a blur of twisted limbs and jagged teeth. The guards opened fire, but the bullets barely slowed it down. It tore through their ranks like a blade through cloth, its warped limbs twisting and flailing. Rex lunged at the creature, striking with vicious precision. The two beasts collided in a frenzy of snarling fur and slashing claws. Nathan fired blindly, unable to tell who was winning. Rex's growls turned to snarls, then to pained yelps. The apex beast lunged forward, jaws closing around Rex's throat. No! Nathan screamed, emptying the rifle's magazine. Rex twisted violently, sinking his teeth into the beast's neck with bone-crushing force. The apex beast shrieked, but Rex didn't let go. His glowing eyes flared brighter, burning with crimson intensity. Flames seemed to dance beneath his skin, and with one final shake, Rex tore the creature's throat wide open. The apex beast's body convulsed, then fell still. Nathan dropped the rifle and rushed to Rex's side. Blood soaked his fur, and his breathing was faint. Nathan knelt beside him, gripping Rex's face gently. You did good, Nathan whispered, his voice shaking. You saved us. The morning air was cold and dry, carrying the scent of charred wood and smoke. Nathan stood at the edge of Haven's Crest, his pack slung over his shoulder. The small pup trotted behind him, its curious amber eyes darting between the ruined walls and the distant forest. Nathan knew he should be leaving, putting distance between himself and the memories that haunted him, but something kept his boots rooted to the ground. The people of Haven's Crest were rebuilding, hammering fresh boards over the northern barricade where the apex beast had torn through their defenses. Marshal Grimm stood nearby, barking orders at his men. His face was harder than usual, but when his gaze met Nathan's, the cold expression softened slightly. You heading out? Grimm called as he walked over. Nathan nodded. I don't belong here. Grimm sighed, crossing his arms. You saved a lot of people, he said. And that thing you call the dog saved even more. Nathan swallowed the lump rising in his throat. Yeah, he muttered. He did. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The sounds of hammering and distant voices filled the silence between them. Grimm cleared his throat. I know what you're thinking, he said. That pup's got the same glow in its eyes. Nathan knelt and ran his fingers through the pup's fur. It wagged its tail and licked his hand, oblivious to the weight of everything that had happened. He's not Rex, Nathan said quietly. Whatever Rex was, this one's just a pup. Maybe, Grimm said. But if he's anything like that dog of yours, well, you'd better be ready. He paused, then added, and if you need a place to come back to, you'll have one here. Nathan gave a faint smile, the kind that barely reached his eyes, and patted the pup's side. Come on, he muttered. Let's go. The journey away from Haven's Crest felt slower than Nathan expected. Each step seemed heavier, as if part of him wasn't sure where to go now. Rex had always been with him, guiding him forward, sensing danger before it arrived. Now it was just him and the little pup, who stumbled clumsily behind him, biting at leaves and chasing shadows. The world suddenly felt quieter, emptier. By nightfall, they found shelter in the remains of an old gas station. The walls were cracked, and the windows had been smashed out long ago. Nathan started a fire near the counter, wrapping his coat around himself, and watching the flames flicker. The pup curled up beside him, shivering slightly in the cold. "You're too small for this," Nathan muttered, scratching the pup's ear. "You wouldn't last a day out here without me." The pup wiggled closer, pressing its tiny body against Nathan's side. For a moment, Nathan let himself smile. The warmth reminded him of Rex, the same stubborn determination, the same quiet loyalty. He shook his head, pushing the thought away. The pup wasn't Rex, and no amount of pretending would change that. He didn't sleep much that night. His dreams were restless, filled with distorted memories, Rex snarling, blood dripping from his jaws, the apex beast's twisted face grinning from the shadows. He woke before dawn, covered in sweat, the fire reduced to glowing embers. The pup stirred beside him, blinking up at him with sleepy eyes. Nathan stroked its fur, whispering, "Don't worry. I'll keep you safe." The next few days passed in a blur. Nathan kept moving, following half-forgotten roads and trails that twisted through the wilderness. The pup trailed after him, never falling far behind. Sometimes it tried to play, jumping at leaves or chasing butterflies, but more often it stayed close, watching Nathan with quiet curiosity. By the fourth night, Nathan began to notice something strange. The pup's behavior was changing. It moved with more purpose now, its steps quieter, its gaze sharper. During one evening walk, the pup suddenly stopped in the middle of the trail, staring off into the trees. Nathan followed its gaze but saw nothing, no movement, no sign of danger. But the way the pup's ears twitched, and its muscles tense reminded him of Rex. The feeling lingered long after they left the area. The following night, Nathan woke to the sound of soft growling. The pup stood near the edge of the campfire's glow, staring out into the dark. Its lips curled back, revealing small but sharp teeth. Nathan sat up quickly, gripping his knife. The night seemed endless and still. Something was out there. The growl faded, and the pup slowly relaxed. Nathan knelt beside it and whispered, "What did you hear?" The pup just wagged its tail and licked his hand. But Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that something had been watching them. As they pushed further west, Nathan realized the signs of trouble were following them. Tracks, large, twisted footprints, started appearing along the trails. Broken branches, claw marks scraped into bark, half-eaten carcasses rotting in the undergrowth. The apex beast was dead. Nathan had seen Rex tear its throat wide open. But whatever was out there now, it was worse. One night, while resting in the remains of an old cabin, Nathan heard distant howls, long, low cries that didn't belong to wolves or dogs. The sound froze him in place. The pup's fur bristled, and this time its growl wasn't small or faint, it was deep and guttural, almost too strong for such a small creature. Nathan didn't sleep at all that night. By morning, Nathan knew they couldn't keep wandering blindly. Whatever was following them was closing in. The pup was stronger now, faster, more aware, but it wasn't enough. Nathan needed answers, and that meant going back to the place he swore he'd never return, the old university lab where he first found Rex's files. The journey back was grueling, but by the time they reached the university ruins, Nathan's fear had been replaced with cold determination. He knew the truth about Project Fenra now, and he was certain whatever beast was hunting them had ties to those experiments. The lab was just as he remembered, cold, dark, and lifeless. Papers still littered the floors, and the broken monitors flickered faintly in the dim light. The pup sniffed the air, its glowing amber eyes scanning every shadow. Nathan found the old records room again, flipping through faded files until one caught his attention: Project Fenra, Alpha Prime. The notes described something even worse than the apex beast, a creature designed not only to hunt and kill but to adapt, to grow stronger with each encounter. The project's scientists had tried to destroy Alpha Prime after it went rogue. They had failed. Nathan read one final note scrawled at the bottom of the page. "Only the prototypes can track Alpha Prime, but containment is impossible. One will have to die to destroy the other." Nathan clenched his fists, staring at the pup curled beside him. The meaning was clear. The pup was connected to the beast, just like Rex had been. Sooner or later, the creature would find them. And when it did, One of them wouldn't survive. Nathan closed the file and knelt beside the pup. It stared up at him with those sharp amber eyes, sensing his fear. "I'm not losing you," Nathan whispered. "Not like I lost him." The pup barked softly and pressed its head against Nathan's chest. Nathan knew the fight wasn't over. The apex beast was gone, but something far worse was coming. He didn't know if the pup was strong enough to face it, but he knew one thing for sure. He wouldn't let it face the monster alone.